بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We thank and we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having granted us another opportunity to sit in a gathering where sacred knowledge is being taught. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us steadfast in our endeavors and to continue the class until the end, inshallah. In the beginning of the class, we spoke about seeking knowledge and how we seek knowledge to improve ourselves, to improve our manners and our character and so on. Let's get this light right. Our manners and our character. And last week we had some reminders about that. It's important to constantly remind ourselves of what and who we should be, how we should behave, how we should act. Last week we spoke about being a good person and what a good person is. That all Muslims are good people, but not all good people are necessarily Muslims. We mentioned that to be good, that we have to be good, we have to think good, and we have to act good towards others. We use the hashtag just be lekker. A friend of mine, Imam Ismail Davids, has got a hashtag for all of his classes. His Hajj class is hashtag Labbaik for life. Maybe I ask Maulana Abdul Rahman if we can make this one hashtag just be lekker. It's important to revisit this often, to revisit what it takes to be, the importance of being a good person and what it takes to be a good person. I was fortunate enough on Friday in Jummah to listen to my beloved teacher, Sheikh Abdul Rahman Khan, and some further reminders he gave us about being a good person, what that means. Because remember that the purpose of this class is for us to improve ourselves and to become better. And just a summary of his talk is, he spoke about the people who are most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who are the people who are most beloved to Allah? The Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said that all of creation are Allah's dependents. And Allah loves those most who are of benefit to his creation. So what does it mean to be of benefit to the creation of Allah? It means doing things for people, being good towards people, making people happy. So when we are nice, when we are good people, when we are nice towards one another, and we are good, and we treat people well, these people are also the creation of Allah, not only Muslims, but all people. Then what happens? We become beloved to Allah. What happens when you are beloved to someone? When somebody is beloved to you, you'll do anything for that person. You'll drop whatever you're doing to be with that person. You want to be with that person. You will protect that person. You will do anything for them. There will be nothing that person asks you that will be too much for you to be able to do. So imagine being the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what that means. What happens when we become beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then Allah calls Jibreel alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, the angel Gabriel, and Allah tells Jibreel that I love such and such a person, so you too must love that person. And then Jibreel tells all the other angels and the souls of the people who have not been born yet that Allah loves such and such a person. So I, as in he, as in Jibreel, also loves that person, and he instructs all of the angels and all of the souls of the people who must still be born to also love that person. And then he instructs those angels to go down to cause that all of the people, the inhabitants of the earth, who come across that person will also love that person. So those angels go down and they whisper into the hearts of all of creation, of all other people, to say that Allah loves this person, so Jibreel loves this person, so we love this person, so you will also love this person. But we don't physically hear this, but it becomes imprinted in our hearts, in our spiritual hearts, and it becomes imprinted in our souls. And we've all met people like this. How many times in our lives, if we think back, have we met someone and felt an instant connection with that person? Like we know them for years, and we're attracted to them and we don't know why. or we find that we love this person, but we can't explain why. These are the people that are beloved to Allah. The people who are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because they are of benefit to others. The Prophet, peace be upon him, the narration goes, Ahabbun nas ilallah. The most beloved of people to Allah, anfa'uhum linnas, are those who benefit, who are beneficial to people, who benefit mankind. Wa ahabbul a'mali ilallah, and the most beloved deed or deeds to Allah, sururun tadkhilu ala muslim, is the person who makes another Muslim happy. So we should strive to be of those people who benefit others and those people who make our fellow Muslims happy. Mustn't be narrow with one another, must be good with one another. This is not just to benefit people from a deen perspective. So you know a little bit about the deen and then you teach them. This is using whatever skills or attributes we have, anything we've been gifted in terms of skills, and we can use that to benefit other people. So whether it's financial matters, physical, coaching, mentoring, supporting people, encouraging them, helping them, being there for them, making them just feel better about themselves, brightening up their day, being a shoulder to lean on, to cry on. Can we just ask everyone to go on mute, please? Right? So that is how we can benefit people. So if you are a skilled runner and you join a running club and you want to coach others, that's also assisting people. It's assisting people with their goals. I shouldn't use running. I'm a cyclist. If you're a good cyclist, then a lot of people run. And then, assist people in that. If you're a good administrator and you join a sporting club, and the sporting club, is developing youth and so on, that's also ways that we can benefit one another. We can benefit the creation of Allah. We can benefit and make people happy. If you are a manager, to be good with your people. If you're an employee, to be good to your manager, to be good with your colleagues and so on. These things are important. And we must be careful to not cause anguish to people, to not be the cause of people's anguish, to interact beautifully, remove difficulty from one another. When we find that our fellow Muslims are in difficulty, to help them. And then we'll become the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Become the most beloved of Allah, who is the creator of everything. So we must be careful how we treat people. Because if we hurt them, we don't know what their standing is with Allah. We don't know what somebody's position is with Allah. You can't look at somebody and say, this person doesn't dress properly. What type of relationship do they have? We can't judge a book by its cover. You can't look at somebody with a long beard and a long top and he's wearing a turban and just automatically assume this is a good person. This person's got morals and ethics and so on. Because that we cannot judge just by what is apparent, because we don't know what is in people's hearts. And we don't know that brother or that sister that you look down upon, that perhaps doesn't wear a scarf, that perhaps wears his jeans a bit tight or something like that. You don't know what his condition is, the condition of his heart is. You don't know what his relationship is with Allah. While we're sleeping, he could be crying his eyes out to Allah and asking Allah, and and really have a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he can be that person, he or she can be beloved to Allah. We never know. So we have to treat people well. Because just imagine you humiliate somebody, or you cause stress or anguish in the life of somebody. And in that moment of despair, you stress this person's heart. You're giving this person such a hard time. They call out to Allah for help, and Allah answers their prayer. The most beloved of persons to Allah calls out to Allah for help. Help me in dealing with this person. Would you want to be on the other end of that dua? Would any one of us want to be on the other end of that dua of this person who is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it's a prayer that they're making against us. Perhaps they didn't mean to, but we cause them so much anguish, they just called out to Allah for help. And then they make a dua inadvertently against the person that hurt them. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that bringing joy to the heart of one believer is more important to him than spending an entire month in itikaf in his masjid. So it's not only about the worship and the rituals. These are things we have to do. We do the rituals and the worship to perfection, to obey Allah's commands, and to, very importantly, remind ourselves of the people we should be. There's that old saying that goes that you cannot treat people like garbage and worship God at the same time. Right? So we have to be good towards people. We have to be good towards one another. Sunshine, rainbows, butterflies, unicorns, and bubbles when we speak to one another. Remember that through our character, that people will judge all of Muslims. And through our character, that somebody could accept or reject Islam. So, hashtag just be lekker. Okay, so where did we end off? Where did we end off last week? I'm going to the notes where we had the table up of the amounts of sunnah rak'ahs before each salah, the amount of fard, and the sunnah afterwards. Right, so I'm reading from that one now. I just want to explain witr. So under Isha, not Ishai, Isha, we've got 0 sunnahs before, no record of 2 sunnahs being before Isha, but people do it in the masjid because we're waiting for people to come. Nothing wrong with doing it. We got 4 for the fard, and then we got 2 after. So sunnahs before is called qabliyatan, and sunnahs after is called ba'diyatan, right? Qabla before, ba'da after. That we've got 2 for Isha afterwards, and then witr we've got 1 to 11, right? So the minimum you can do is 1. In Cape Town we generally do 3, but the most that you can go to is 11. Okay, I just wanted to explain that point over there. A lot of the questions that came through last week were either answered, or we will get to the answers to those questions tonight, inshallah. And there was one other question that came through from one of the brothers on the chat that we will cover as well. Is there any questions about last week? I'm not waiting for questions. I'm going to my notes. Okay, if we can just go to the first note that I sent today, which says Salah continued, right? So this was just some of my thoughts that I had that I thought, let me just put down and then just speak to everyone about it. And then I thought, let me just post it to the class. A lot of the theory we covered last week was perhaps could have been overwhelming. It's a lot of information. For some people, it's not a lot was new, and for other people, a lot of it would be new. I think the key thing for me is most of what we covered last week, we are already doing, right? We're already making salah. We know we must stand, we must bow, we must prostrate, and so on. All that was we presented last week was a more correct way of doing things, right? So in the Shafi school of thought, the most correct way or the more correct way of doing things. So don't let the amount of information that was conveyed last week overwhelm you. Practice on what you know, and over time make the necessary changes towards salah more correct, right? So for example, we all know now that it is recommended, or I was going to say best practice, to, at the time of tashahud, when you point your finger, when you say illallah, to look at your finger. So practice on that for a while. We all know now that the pause is part of the fards of salah, so implement that pause in each of the positions. The extra sitting position after the second sujood, we now know about that. So let's implement these things one at a time. Anything else that may have stood out for you or is different to what you were doing, review the notes again, look at how you're performing salah, and then make the necessary changes. For the children, best to watch your parents, how they perform salah. For the adults, must perhaps attend the masjid. The masjids are open now, and observe how people are praying. Perhaps go to a friend and pray together with a friend, maybe one prayer time during the day or on a weekend or something like that. Everything in life is about continuous improvement over a period of time. We're not expected to make these changes, wholesale changes, and go from 0 to 100, or from you're not even crawling to sprinting overnight. Try and make small incremental changes over a period of time. Don't be too hasty to make wholesale changes. If you are somebody who is new to the deen, or you haven't been performing salah, try with one waqtu. Try maghrib, for example. And then do maghrib, perform maghrib on time correctly for maybe 2-3 weeks. Then add isha, then maybe add dhuhr, then asr, then end up with fajr. But do it over a period of time. Don't go from I make no salah now to all of a sudden I'm going to salah 5 times a day. It's not going to be sustainable. You're just going to burn yourself out. Aqimu salah is the commandment. We must establish salah, right? It must be well established for us, and we establish things over a long period of time. Right, so don't be too hasty to make wholesale changes. Focus on one thing, one improvement at a time, small incremental improvements. Refer back to the notes, break it into small parts. Learn the Fatiha correctly. Go into YouTube, listen to how the Qaris are reciting Surah Fatiha correctly. Learn to implement the pause. Learn what to recite in the various positions one at a time. And then, just repetition. There's an Arabic saying that goes, Man jadda wajada, that whomsoever strives will overcome. That if we put in effort, then we will be successful, right? So repetition, do it over and over and over again. For the tahiyat, write it on a page and read. Just scroll but down to the note, the picture that I posted there. That's a very profound, beautiful, powerful picture. It's obviously somebody who's recently become Muslim. He's praying and he's got instructions on how to pray on a piece of paper in front of him. If you need to do that, then do that. Don't ask the question, but how can I put Arabic writing on the ground and anything like that? You're learning to make salah. You're learning to connect with Allah. You're learning to have a conversation with Allah. Do what you need to do to be able to learn it and learn it properly and to be consistent. If you struggle with the Arabic, then learn the translation. Just don't recite it out loud. Because if you say, in the name of Allah, most beneficent, the merciful, you're speaking in your salah, right? So salah is only Arabic, so then do it in your mind, And if you struggle even with translation and transliteration, then don't do anything, just do the actions. And then learn these things one at a time, slowly but surely. If you do nothing, then nothing will happen. Nothing comes from nothing. We have to put in effort, and we have to do small incremental changes at a time. So if you haven't been performing salah, if salah is something that's new to you or new to Islam, just think, if you do nothing now, by the time you get to Oya Aunt, you can be making salah. Or you can think, why didn't I start in September or in October? So make the change now, one small little thing at a time, incremental changes, little bit at a time, right? And don't quit. Always remain focused. You're going to be making salah for the rest of your life. So just some of my thoughts and perhaps maybe some advice for those who feel overwhelmed. We feel that there's a lot of information. That's why I typed out the notes so that you can go back to the notes and you can refer back to the notes and make it easy for yourself. And I'm sure all of you got my number now, so I suppose you can WhatsApp me. You see, I didn't say that very clearly. Okay, now on to the next note. So now this is the second one that I sent. Salah continued, class 5 is the heading. Offensive makruh actions in prayer. What did we say is makruh? Makruh is something that if we do it, it is disliked. We're not punished for it, right? So you can do it, but it doesn't invalidate your salah, but it's disliked. So when you need to go relieve yourself to go to the toilet and you make salah and then you dancing up and down, right? That's makruh. In the presence of desired food, when one is hungry, so in my case, when there's akne or biryani, right? Then perhaps eat a little bit first. Don't ask me what's a little bit. And then go and perform salah, right? To cross the fingers, hands on the hips, stand with your hands on the hips to look up to the sky. I suppose you could add there to close your eyes as well, because if you close your eyes, you'll actually just get drowsy and you might even just fall over. So rather look at where your head is going to land. Additional etiquettes of salah, coming to the salah, smelling of smoke and the like. So the books of fiqh talk about onions and garlic. So you must smell like brush your teeth, put on a bit of cologne or something before you go and pray, especially if you're going to make in jama'ah, and then to run to the salah. Pre-lockdown, the following scenario played itself out in numerous mosques across Cape Town. About 20 minutes before prayer time or during the day, a brother would go with 2,000 Rand to the bank and he would make 1 Rand coins. He would change it all for 1 Rand coins. He will then fill his pockets. And then while you are praying in the mosque, he would come running into the mosque and you hear all this change. His big bunches of keys all shaking and making a noise, right? It's distracting. And don't even speak about when the mosque has got a wooden floor. And you hear doof, 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 doof. It is offensive to come to salah like that. If the jama'ah is standing, the most you're going to miss is 1 rak'ah, right? And then you just have to build them to yourself. Walk at a steady pace. You're going to get there. You're going to be out of breath. You're going to be breathing. Your 4,001 Rand coins made a change. Your 20 keys on your bunch of keys is making a noise. The wooden floors is creaking and making banging sounds while you're running. The way we approach and come to our salah, you need to do that with etiquette as well. Right? So running to the salah, definitely. Yes, we must make haste, but not run. Okay. Now, next section. Conditions under which salah can be missed. There are 3 conditions under which salah can be missed. When I say salah can be missed, it means that 3 valid conditions where you do not pray a particular waqt, like Maghrib, and you only perform it after its time. Or Fajr, and you perform it after its time. Or Dhuhr, and you miss the whole waqt of Dhuhr, and you do it in Asr. The first condition is oversleeping. The second condition is forgetting. And the third condition is traveling when you made intention to delay or combine the prayer. And the oversleeping, I think oversleeping is quite easy. You fell asleep and you woke up and the time of prayer has passed. Happens a lot with Fajr. Could happen with Asr as well, I suppose, because, you know, if you go to Europe, to Spain, the people do what's called a siesta. That's actually a sunnah, to take a rest after. Okay, and to switch off your phones when you make salah as well. So it's a sunnah to take some rest after the prayer of Dhuhr. In Arabic, is called Kaylula. I'm pretty sure the Spanish got it from the Arabs, because remember that Spain was under Muslim control for about 11 centuries. I think 11 centuries. So in Arabic, it's called Kaylula. So you make Dhuhr, you go to sleep, lay on your side. You're supposed to take a nap and you sleep right through till Maghrib, right? Maybe because you were playing games the night before, right? So that's when you oversleep. Unconsciousness and general anesthetic falls under the condition of being sane. So when you were put under for an operation, you technically weren't sane. You didn't have your aql at that point in time. So whatever salah you missed while you were in that operation, you don't have to pay it back, right? Because salah was not incumbent upon you. But do pay it back in, right? Do go and perform the salah that was missed. But just know that if you did miss it, then you know there's no sin on you, because you technically were unconscious at that point in time. So you go you go into theater at 1:30, say 2:00, you perform your Dhuhr salah, and then your surgery lasts till after Maghrib, for example. Then Asr won't be incumbent upon you. Because you weren't at your full senses at that point in time. Dhuhr, if you didn't perform it, will still be incumbent upon you. You still have to pay it in, because when the prayer time for Dhuhr came, you weren't under anesthetic. So unconsciousness or general anesthetic falls under that category of not oversleeping, but of not being, I don't want to say sane, but not being by your full senses at that point in time. Forgetting, every day you in such a routine, every day you take wudu, 10 to 1, you get ready to pray Dhuhr, and then on a particular day, somebody knocks on your door and you get into a conversation with the person and you completely forget, and then you go back to what you normally do after you pray Dhuhr, which is perhaps have lunch, and then go back to work, because a lot of us are working from home, and when you get to Asr, you perform Asr, and then you realize you didn't perform Dhuhr, right? Can happen. And then traveling, and we're going to get to the salah of the traveler afterwards. Any other reason other than one of those 3 will be punishable if we have any other reason for not praying on time, and it is not one of those 3 reasons. Okay? So those are and remember, if it is one of these 3 reasons, you have to pay the salah back in. You must pay your skilt, as the old people used to say. And if it's any other reason, you must still pay in the skilt as well. Right? Switch off your phones and put it on silent before you enter the masjid. Is one of the other etiquettes. Yeah, it's one of the etiquettes as well. So what does the latecomer to the congregational prayer, the Jama'ah Salah, do? So once the ruku of any raka'ah, the bowing position, is missed, then the entire raka'ah has been missed. So if you join a group of people praying and they are in the ruku and you come walking on, because now you're not going to run, you're going to walk khalidarach, and as you get to them, they come out of ruku, you've missed that raka'ah. You have to pay that entire raka'ah back, right? So you will join the salah, you'll go with him into sujood, you'll sit between the 2 sujoods, you'll go into sujood again, and you'll come back up, and that will be the start of your first rak'ah, right? So even though you got half of the rak'ah, which was the 2 sujoods, the sitting between, you might have gotten the bit of the i'tidal when they came out of ruku, you miss that rak'ah, right? Because you missed the ruku. You missed the ruku, you missed the entire rak'ah, right? Sorry, I skipped a section there. Making up missed prayer, qada'an. Sorry. Always perform the missed prayer in the correct sequence. So what does that mean? I made Fajr in the morning. I went to work. For some reason, I missed Dhuhr. I missed Asr. Now I come home and it's Maghrib. The Adhan goes off for Maghrib. I mustn't make Maghrib first, then Dhuhr, and then Asr. I must make Dhuhr, Asr, and then Maghrib. Okay? It's always done in that sequence. Even if it means that performing Dhuhr first and then Asr, those that I missed, means that I now push the other one close to the end of its time. That's what you have to do, right? If you're going to a masjid and they are making Maghrib and you didn't make Asr, you have to perform Asr first. Even if it means you're going to miss the Jama'ah, the congregation Salah of Maghrib, you perform Asr first. Because we don't Salah Fajr, Maghrib, Dhuhr, Asr, Isha. And we don't Salah Fajr, Isha, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib. It's Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. It is always in that sequence. So we always Salah in that sequence, right? Okay, Thabit, I'll get to the question now. Right, so always pay it in the correct sequence, right? In the sequence that the Salah appeared during the day. When following an Imam, it doesn't matter if the prayer he's performing is the same as the missed prayer of the follower or not. It also doesn't matter if the person you are following is performing a sunnah and you're going to make a fard, right? It doesn't matter. Somebody can, you come into the mosque for Maghrib, they finish Salahing, the person is making a sunnah, I go and I tap him on my shoulder, he will just recite out loud and I'll follow him. That's fine. He's making a sunnah, I'm making a fard, my niyyah is in my heart, his niyyah is in his heart. This can work at home as well. Like if you have people who take very long to do at home and you just can't wait anymore in your salah, when they come back and you're making your sunnah, they can join, follow you just by alerting you and tapping you on your shoulder, and then you recite out loud and they can follow you in the salah, right? So that's a very important point. Doesn't matter what that person is praying, you can still follow him. Right? Even if following an imam results in the prayer of the follower being out of sequence. Okay, now I'm going to speak a lot. You come into a mosque or you come upon a group of people and they're praying Maghrib. You don't know how far they are in Maghrib. You've got wudu. You join the prayer, so just bear with me, immediately after they come out of ruku. So you've missed that rak'ah. So you join them in the i'tidal, the standing position. They've just performed the ruku. You know you missed one rak'ah, right? You don't know what they've done before this. You don't know how much they still need to do. They go into sujood, they'll sit, they're going to sujood, and they come up into a sitting position. From your position, you see them sitting in tawarruk. So now you know they are in their final sitting. Or maybe they don't sit in tawarruk, but at the end of the tashahhud, the imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. At that point in time, you know that you missed all three rak'ahs of Maghrib. Because you joined them in a standing position after the ruku. You made sujood, you sat between the sujood, you made another sujood, you sat in tashahhud, and then the imam ended the salah. So you know now, they done, you missed all three. So now you stand up for the start of your first rak'ah, because you missed the ruku of their last rak'ah. Right? So you're now going to pray your first rak'ah. You pray your first rak'ah as you would. Right? Now you stand up for your second rak'ah. At the end of your second rak'ah, you sit in tashahhud. Right? When the tashahhud is completed, you stand up for your third rak'ah, and you complete your third rak'ah and you sit in tashahhud again. By the time you have completed your salah, you perform 3 rak'ahs, but you sat in tashahhud 3 times. So the sequence of your salah is completely out. Picture a very similar scenario. You join the salah, a group of people making salah at exactly the same point. They just came out of ruku. They go down into sujood, they sit, they go down into sujood, they sit in tahiyat. Right? You are in rak'ah number 0 because you missed the ruku. You complete the tahiyat with him. The imam says Allahu Akbar and he stands up. You now know that was their second rak'ah. They're making Maghrib. You are in your first, they are in their third. What happens at the end of the third rak'ah in Maghrib? The Imam will sit in tashahhud again. You follow them, you sit in tashahhud. The Imam concludes his prayer. You stand up for rak'ah number 2. Right? Your first one was incomplete, half a rak'ah. Then you did your first one, which was the Imam's third. You're now going to do your second one and sit in tashahhud. Stand up for your third one and sit in tashahhud again. At the end of that salah, you would have sat in tashahhud 4 times. In your virtual rak'ah that you missed, where you missed the ruku, you'd have sat in tashahhud in your first rak'ah, which was the Imam's third. You'd have sat in tashahhud in your second rak'ah, when you broke away from the Imam, when he ended the salah, and you'd have sat in tashahhud in your third rak'ah for the 4th time. So that sequence for Maghrib is completely thrown out, but your salah is still correct, because you followed an Imam. The key thing with making qada'an, with qada'an is that when you're adding onto the salah, and this goes into the next point, is you pay back exactly what you missed in the order that you missed it. Okay, is there any questions on that? Oh, there's a lot of questions. If someone taps you and you're making a sunnah, is it compulsory for you to recite loudly from that point? Yes, it would be. All right? Remember that you can recite loudly, but you're not going to like a Qari type of a move or something like that, right? You'll just recite a little bit louder. If anything, you can perhaps just do your Allahu Akbars loud, right? But if it's something like Maghrib, Fajr, then by all means recite loud that he can hear, not the whole masjid must now hear you reciting, right? So you'll recite loud from that point. You haven't performed Asr, you make it into masjid for Maghrib. Are you allowed to follow the Imam making Maghrib Salah for your Asr? Yes, you can. Right? When the Imam concludes his Maghrib, you will stand up and you will then make your 4th rak'ah for Asr. And then you'll do your Maghrib after that, right? You pray the missed Salah first. The missed Salah gets priority, right? At all times. The thing I want to impress on Qada'an Salah is to always, what did I miss? What prayer time is it now? Let me do the one that I missed first, and then to do the other prayer time, right? And then to do the one that is in its time. Okay. We shall pause for questions. Yes, the tapping can be applied for women as well. I don't actually know where the tapping comes from, to be honest. I haven't come across a hadith for it or anything like that. It was like in Cape Town, one day people just started doing it, and nobody like really questioned it. It's maybe something I'll go look on, but the woman can tap as well. Maybe if we got time, I'll tell you a funny tapping story that happened to me once. Okay, so I'm going to just summarize this point again. We salah in a specific sequence during the day. We do Fajr first, then we do Dhuhr, then we do Asr, then we do Maghrib. Just holding as a question. Correct. If you come into a masjid or you come home and there's somebody salaying at home and it is now Maghrib, it's definitely Maghrib, the sun went down, you heard the adhan go off on the radio. You didn't make Asr. You take wudu, you go join the person that is praying Maghrib. They're going to do 3. You do the 3 with him. When they say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, you stand up and you do your 4th. Because Asr is 4. And because you missed Asr, you have to give priority to Asr. Right? You cannot make Maghrib. Or you must not make Maghrib. You have to make Asr first. You made Fajr, you made Dhuhr, you missed Asr, you came home, it's Maghrib. Somebody's making Maghrib at home, you have to make Asr first before you can make Maghrib. Okay, that answer the question? Which means you will have to add an extra rak'ah when the Imam says Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. You stand up and then you will make Maghrib. You will make one more rak'ah. Even if you miss the 23-minute window for Maghrib. Right? If the person is, you have to give preference to the sequence of the salah. So the question here, I'm assuming, is that you come home, you are past the 23 minutes of Maghrib, you haven't made Asr, you haven't prayed Maghrib yet, right? You will still make Asr first and then you will pray Maghrib, even if it is after the 23 minutes. Okay? Fahimtu? It's Arabic for do you understand? You remember the old, while I'm waiting for this person to type the question, you remember the old people used to say, let's faham gemaak? Faham comes from the word fahama, yafamu, which means to understand. Okay, so you come home during the 23-minute window, you have to make asr still. Even if it means making asr is going to push maghrib, boom, gone. And you're going to miss maghrib. You have to pray the prayer that you missed first. And if praying that one first means that you now push maghrib outside of its time, double whammy. Even if you're catching up dhuhr and asr, the niyyah that you make is instead of saying ada'an, you say qada'an. I'll get to the niyyahs. Okay? So the niyyah in your mind would be is that I'm paying this in. I'm doing it out of its time. Qada'an means out of its time. Ada'an means within its time. Okay? Okay. Looks like that question is answered. Hopefully. Oh, another question. Oh. Even if you join Fajr during the Qunut, you still, if it's Maghrib from last night, you'll have a Qunut in your Maghrib. In the last Rak'ah example, the third of Maghrib, and you're making Asr, do you recite Tahiyat or do you just do the sitting? You recite the Tahiyat, you're sitting in Tashahud. Go back to what is the fard of Salah, to sit in Tashahud and to recite the Tashahud. There's a portion that is fard, to recite Salawat upon the Nabi and upon his family, so you recite the Tashahud. You do everything that you are supposed to do in that position. So I want to just recap that section again. I was at home, I prayed Fajr. I went to work, I prayed Dhuhr. I didn't make Asr. I sat in meetings all afternoon. And then I went home. And when I came home, it's time to pray Maghrib. I have to pray Asr first, and then I have to pray Maghrib. Right? Even if it means that Maghrib now gets pushed out of its 23-minute window. But now you must know how to Salah very quickly. You know, you only need to do things once. You know, you only recite the Fatiha and so on. But the point I'm trying to make is you always do what the Salah that you missed first. I think in Cape Town we were taught to first Salah, the waqt that is in, and then to do our skuld afterwards. But then you Salah, Fajr, Dhuhr, Maghrib, Isha, Asr, type of a thing. You know, it's all demakam. Give preference to the one that you missed first, right? And give preference to the one you must first, and then do the one that is in its time. So every day, your sequence of your Salah must be Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib. Not Fajr, Dhuhr, Maghrib, Asr, Isha, type of a thing, right? Okay. If you miss Dhuhr and Asr and you get home after Maghrib, do you Salah Dhuhr first? Yes, you do Dhuhr first, then you do Asr, then you do Maghrib, and then you do Isha. So that is in that sequence. I didn't realize this. Yeah, this was new for me when I learned it as well. But don't worry, it's Sahih. It's the right way. I do complete my Fajr if I join Jama'ah during Qunut. You'll recite the Qunut, you'll finish the Salah, and you'll add 2 because you missed the Ruku. If you miss the Ruku, you miss the Rak'ah. Right? It's 2 important points here. If you miss the Ruku, you miss the Rak'ah. And if you didn't pray a prayer on time and you get into the next prayer time, you give preference to the one that you didn't pray first. That is the only 2 points I'm making here. Okay? You miss the Ruku, you miss the Rak'ah. Don't worry if the Salah is all jumbled up after that. I gave you an example where you can sit in Tashahud 4 times in 3 Rak'ahs, and that Salah will still be correct. Always add on exactly what you missed in the sequence that you missed it. And pray your Salah for the day in sequence. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Okay. With regards to the invalidated Salah, does yawning? No, yawning doesn't invalidate your Salah. But it is one of the etiquettes type of that you don't want to khap the whole time, close your mouth, try and keep it in or something. don't go yawning kind of all the time. I buy me a grandpa every Tuesday for after these questions. Are there any differences in views from the four madhabs on the sequencing of salah we are speaking about? I'll find out, but I don't think so. I think they're all impressed on the fact that we have to perform a salah in that sequence, but I'll find out. You miss Maghrib, you are in Masjid for Isha, 4 rakahs, 3 rakahs. Interesting one. You miss Maghrib, the Imam's making 4, you have to make 3. You're going to look so innocent. You pray with the Imam, and when he gets up to go stand in the fourth one, you remain seated and you do one of two things. You sit in Tahiyat until he comes into Tashahud, until he finishes his fourth rak'ah and he sits in Tashahud, and then you end the Salah with him. Or when he gets up to go and stand for his fourth rak'ah, you make niyyah in your mind to break away from the Imam, perform your Tashahud and end your Salah. Okay. Is your salah valid? Your salah behind someone who didn't make all the, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know if somebody made their salah on time or in the correct sequence. So is your salah valid? Your salah behind someone who didn't make all the salahs and only maghrib? Yeah, so valid. You don't know that. You don't even know he's making sunnah. You don't know what's in his heart. You don't know his relationship with Allah. There's a lot of things you don't know. So we judge. We cannot always judge. In some cases, we judge on what's apparent. In some cases, we can't judge on what's apparent. But you wouldn't know, so you can salah behind him. What about the sequence of witr salah? Is it preferred to be made after Isha or after Tahajjud if you made intention to do so? Kashifa, can I get to that one when I get to Tahajjud? Because I just want to make sure that everybody is okay. I did tell you guys that there's going to be some things here that's going to be different to how you learned things many, many years ago. Right? This is one of those things. I just want to make sure that everybody is on the page that I will salah all my salahs in sequence as they appear during the day, even if I missed them and even if I came upon a group of people praying a particular prayer in congregation, but I didn't do the previous one, that I will do that previous one. Okay. A lot of these questions are Islam 201, not 101. Okay, the WhatsApp's gone silent. Can I just get a thumbs up from the people who asked the questions on WhatsApp that everything's okay? That their questions are answered. When you tap to join somebody, always stand on their right. Maybe while I wait for people to confirm, I'll tell you my funny story. I walked into Mount View Masjid a few years ago. I approached a brother from the left-hand side. He just said Allahu Akbar to go. I don't know why I did this. I tapped him on his left shoulder. I walked behind him. I went to go stand on his right. In his salah, he looked to his left. He saw nobody. He then looked to his right. He saw me. He broke his salah. He shook my hand and he walked away. So if you tap on the right, don't tap on the left-hand side. Tap on the right-hand side and just stand slightly behind the person over there. Okay. All right. I got thumbs up from everybody except one person who asked questions. Okay. So this question, if you miss Fajr and join Dhuhr Salah in the first rak'ah, then how do you finish Fajr? Very similar to the question that was asked about you miss Maghrib and you're now going to pray and you come across people praying Isha. So you didn't pray Fajr and now you come across a group of people praying Dhuhr and you join them from the very beginning of the Salah. When they sit in their first tashahud for their second rak'ah, you're technically done. They're going to stand up and pray another 2. As they say Allahu Akbar and stand up, at that point in time, you make a niyyah in your mind, and the niyyah is very simple and say, I'm going to break away from the jama'ah and complete my salah on my own. And then you make Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and your salah will be finished. Alternatively, and this is the one that you could do as well, is you sit in tashahud and wait for them to finish their third and their fourth, and then in the tashahud position, with them you finish your salah. But people's going to look at you very funny. I would rather make the niyyah at that point in time when they get up for 3 and you remain seated in the tashahhud, complete your salah at that point in time, and then that is how you would do it. Okay, can I get a thumbs up? Yeah, I'm gonna need that grandpa now. Okay, so you must asr and people ask you to lead Maghrib. Decline. It's like a change control. All right. Okay, I think we all get the picture. The principle is pray your salah in sequence, irrespective of what it results in. If it means you missed Maghrib, then you shouldn't have missed Asr. Or you shouldn't have missed Dhuhr. Right? Maghrib lost 23 minutes. Is the reason lost 23 minutes. If you came home and you didn't make Dhuhr and Asr, and you're saying, yeah, but now I'm going to miss Maghrib, then you should have thought about that Dhuhr and Asr. Right? You should have prayed Dhuhr and Asr on time. Right? So, perform your salah in that correct sequence and always add on what you have missed in the sequence you've missed. I'm going to get to the travel salah now. I was under the impression Fajr salah can't be made up once missed. Yes, no, it can. Most definitely. Every salah you missed your entire life, you have to pay back to Allah. And I'm going to get to that now. Okay. What does the latecomer to congregational prayer do? Like I said before, there are, as soon as you miss the ruku, you miss the entire rak'ah. So if you come there and the imam says, Sami Allahu liman hamida, you missed out. You missed out. You came too late. You can't say, I got a part of the rak'ah. You got 0 rak'ahs. You're going to sujood to them, you'll sit, you're going to sujood again. When you stand up, you're in your first rak'ah. Right? Always follow the imam if the sequence of your prayer seems incorrect. Like I explained to you, you can come late for Maghrib, and then when you come late for Maghrib, you will end up making 3 rak'ahs, but you set in tashahhud for 4. That's fine. Always pay in what you missed in the sequence of what you need to pay in first. If the imam's 3rd rak'ah was your first, you sit in tashahhud. The next rak'ah you perform on your own is your 2nd. What do you do in the 2nd? The 2nd rak'ah has got attributes. You recite loud, you recite the surah, and you sit in tashahhud. So you do that. You missed your 2nd rak'ah. If your 2nd rak'ah is the imam's 3rd, that's fine. You can recite this so that you can hear yourself and you can do your surah afterwards. Right? So always think of it like this. Forget about what the imam is doing. Think about what you are praying. The imam is doing his 3rd. That's his own thing. That's his 3rd. It's not your 3rd. It's my 1st. Right? So when he's finished with his salah and I stand up, I'm now doing my 2nd. What do you do in your 2nd? You recite loud and you sit in tashahhud. So you sit in tashahhud and you recite loud. And this is something that a lot of people get wrong, because you see when you come late and you joined at the exact same time as a brother, but he's finished long before you. But you both must ruku. Right? So something not a lot of people know. So always, the minute you miss the ruku, cancel that rak'ah and always pay back what you missed in the sequence that you missed it. I missed, my first rak'ah was the imam's 3rd, so I must do my 2nd. What does my 2nd look like and what does my 3rd look like? Right? And then you pray it that way. Once the imam concludes his prayer, you add on what has been missed in the exact sequence that it was missed. So I got 1 rak'ah for the imam, I must make another 2. So it's my 2nd, my 3rd. I pray my 2nd like it is a 2nd. I pray my 3rd like it is a 3rd. Right? To get the reward of Jama'ah Salah, a follower must get the full final tashahhud of the imam. It brings my colleague in mind again. You can't join the imam, Allahu Akbar, sit down, and then as you sit down, the imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and say you got Jama'ah Salah. To get the reward of Jama'ah Salah, you had to have gotten the whole tashahhud. At-tahiyyatu mubarakatuh, salawatu tayyibatu lillahi, assalamu alayka wa nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Boom. Now you got the full reward of Jama'ah Salah. Right? Okay. No, I didn't take the grandpa. Okay. All right. Any questions on the congregational prayer? It's a very simple rule. If you miss the ruku, you miss the rak'ah, and always pay back everything that you, in the sequence that you missed it. right? Fajr can be prayed once missed. If I'm traveling, I'll get to the Salah of the traveler now. Is the 23 minutes only for Shafi Madhab? Good question. I don't know. I'll check. Isra, can you write down the question for me, please? Is the 23 minutes only for the Shafi Madhab is the question. Just write it down in a book for me and then I can, I'll look for the answer for that. Okay. Are we okay with the latecomer to congregational prayer and the making up the missed prayer? Of course we're okay. When missing the first rakah of Jummah prayer, the latecomer adds 3 rakah afterwards. So you join them in the standing position of Jummah after the first rakah was completed, you add 3. You don't add 1. Right? Oh, Takbiratul Ihram must be done. You come late for Salah, they're going into Ruku. Panic stations. If you miss this Ruku, you miss the whole rakah. Yawmul Qiyamah. You can't say Allahu Akbar and go into Ruku. You say Allahu Akbar and then you go into Ruku. It's Takbiratul Ihram first, then Allahu Akbar and go into Ruku. Okay? Not Allahu Akbar, summa into Ruku. Bow into Ruku. First, Takbiratul Ihram. We said Takbiratul Ihram is a fard of the Salah. Okay. I did cover that question. If you get to mosque and the Imam is performing Maghrib and we need to still do Asr, you pray Asr with him. And when he's finished with Maghrib, you just add 1 more. People's going to look at you funny. But yeah. Because they're going to see you joined on time and you're making a 4th one. Everyone's going to know you didn't Salah Asr. Okay. Are we all okay with this? It's very important that we understand this. If we don't understand it, then we must not miss any salahs anymore. We must make all of them on time. Because we're not going to know what to do. Okay. I'm going to recap it again. Perform your salahs always in sequence that they appear in the day. Fajr is before Dhuhr. Dhuhr is before Asr. Asr is before Maghrib. Maghrib is before Isha. Even if you have to do it and you miss another one that pushes it late. That's your straf for missing the salahs in the first place. Right? I used to think of it like that. So always do that. Don't come to somebody and they're making Maghrib and then you make Maghrib but you didn't make Asr yet. Perform the Asr first, then do the Maghrib. Okay? If you came home and you had enough time to go to the mosque, you could have made Asr. Maghrib, for example. Okay. I'm going to move on now, brothers and sisters. When omitting a sunnah, you perform sujood sahwi. So the sunnahs that you miss, that result in you having to perform sujood sahwi. Oh, we must still see the next section we're getting to. Is the Qunut in Fajr, the Qunut in Witr Salah after the 15th of Ramadan, and the first tashahud when performing a prayer that is more than 2 rak'ah. So in other words, when you're performing Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, it's more than 2 rak'ahs. So the second rak'ah ends in tashahud. If you miss that tashahud, then you have performed sujood sahwi. Right? An obligatory act, the act that you have to do. Actions, so obligatory fard actions take priority over sunnah, which are recommended actions. So what I mean by that is, you forgot to stand in the Qunut in Fajr and you're going down into sujood, right? If you are more than halfway down into sujood, you don't return back to the standing position to perform the Qunut, your salah will be invalid. So let's just say you went down and your knees touched the ground and you realize, then you get all that complex graphs in your mind. Pythagoras solved for x and all this. Oh, you didn't make Qunut. Don't get back up, right? Because to make sujood is a fard, to make Qunut is a sunnah. You never give a sunnah priority over a fard, right? Recommended actions do not take priority over obligatory actions. So if you're more than halfway down, continue down. Similarly, if you missed the second tashahud, the first tashahud, you came out of sujood, you're supposed to sit in tashahud, and then you stand up. The minute you are more than halfway up to the standing position, which is an obligatory position, don't go back down. You are sacrificing an obligatory /fard action for a sunnah /recommended action. Don't do that, right? Just continue with salah and perform sujood sahwi at the end of the salah. If you forgot the number of rak'ah that you are in, oh, this is the complex maths, the one where you just stand so long after the ruku. You see, oh, what must I do now? Always work on the lower number. So if you don't know if you are in 2 or 3, then take it that you are in 2. If you don't know if you are in 3 or 4, take it that you are in 3. Right? Build on the lesser amount. So if you don't know if you're in 2 or 3, assume that you've done 2, and then just do another 2, and then perform sujood sahwi at the end. Right? Omitting a fard. So omitting an obligatory act. If one praise, spelling mistake. If one prays and realizes that an obligatory act was omitted, everything that was done after omitting the obligatory act is nullified. I didn't make my second sujood, then I just stood up and I prayed on. That rak'ah is incomplete. So the minute I realize I did that, I have to return back to that point. So you got a couple of options. I either go back to what was missed and restart from there, right? So you don't stop and you go back to it. You go back to the position, but that's not recommended because you're going to be salahing all over the place. Second option is better. Perform the entire rak'ah over and build on from there. So in my third rak'ah, I realized in my first one, I only made sujood once. Okay? Then this rak'ah, which is my third, I'm now going to count this as my first rak'ah. And then I'm going to take it from there. So in other words, I'll end up doing like something like 7. Right? The other option is add another rak'ah at the end of the salah to substitute the incomplete rak'ah. So in my fourth rak'ah, I realized I only made sujood once in my first rak'ah. Then before I say, and I'm sitting tashahud, before I say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, I say Allahu Akbar and I do the whole rak'ah over. 2 or 3 are preferable, right? So it's like you hit a reset on the salah, and then in my fourth rak'ah, I'm standing and I say, oh, I didn't make 2 sujoods in my first rak'ah. Okay, this is now my first rak'ah. I'm doing it over. And then my next one is my second, my third, and my fourth. You'll end up making 7, but that is going to be much more easier. And then, of course, perform sujood sahwi at the end of the prayer. An important note, sujood sahwi, obligatory acts must be done and cannot be substituted with sujood sahwi. When you miss a sunnah act, you make sujood sahwi, but you don't repeat the thing that you missed, like the Qaneet or the second tashahud, right? But an obligatory act, the salah is incorrect until you correct it, right? So if you did a half a rak'ah or you missed 1 rak'ah, you still have to correct it and you have to do sujood sahwi at the end. Okay. And how do you perform sujood sahwi? Oh, and then you can omit sujood sahwi. You can forget that you had to do sujood sahwi as well. Sujood sahwi, luckily it's a sunnah, so if you forgot to do it after omitting a sunnah, then the salah is still correct. Right, so the Qaneet or that should be and the first tashahud or the first tashahud. Similarly, one had to perform a sujood sahwi for omitting an obligatory act, then the salah is still correct because what was missed was paid in. Remember, we said that when you missed an obligatory act and you realize it, you correct the salah first. You go back to it. You add on. You re-niyyah. Your salah, your third rak'ah now becomes your first because your first was incomplete. And then you just salah, it's like you reset your salah type of a thing. And you just complete 4 rak'ahs from that point onwards. Because your first one was incomplete, which means your second one wasn't valid because your first one wasn't complete, which means the one that you're now in, which is in your third, just almost like you're making a niyyah to say, this is now my first. I'm redoing my first one. Right? So even if you had to do sujood sahwi, your salah will still be correct. How to perform sujood sahwi? After the final tashahud, before ending the salah, perform an additional 2 prostrations. So, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You finish it. You're about to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You say Allahu Akbar. You're going to sujood. Subhana rabbil a'la wa bihamdi. And the dua is there. Subhana alladhi la yanamu wa la yasu. Glory be unto Allah who does not sleep nor forget. You come out of the sujood, you do it 3 times, and you can say Rabbi firli wa rahamni again, and you go back into sujood. So it's a second sujood now, and you do this again, Subhanalladhi la yanamu wa la yasu. Then you come out of sujood and you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So you add 2 sujoods to the end of your salah, to the end of your tashahud, before you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay. If you did forget the sujood sahwi and you ended your salah and you haven't spoken and you haven't moved from that place, as you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you forget, you remember. There are some fiqh books that say you can do it at that point in time as well. Okay. So it's provided you hasn't moved from the place of prayer or spoken more than a few words. I don't think I should go to the prayer of the traveler. I just need to make sure that everybody is. Our class has got extended to 13 weeks now. I just need to make sure that everybody is 100% okay with making up missed prayer, qada'an, and the latecomer to congregational prayer. Okay, so sujood sahwi is the sujood of forgetfulness. When you made a mistake or you left something out of the salah, like the qunut in fajr, or you prayed dhuhr and you didn't sit in the first tashahud, and then at the end of your prayer, you do sujood sahwi. So why you will do that is, in my last rak'ah, I'm in sujood, I come up and I sit in tashahud, and recite my whole tashahud, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, point my finger, recite it till the end. I'm about to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then I say Allahu Akbar, I go into sujood, I say Allahu Akbar, I come out of sujood, I say Allahu Akbar, I go back into sujood, and I say Allahu Akbar and I come back out of sujood, and then I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So I added 2 sujoods at the end of my tashahud, right? So if I was salaying fajr, I would have made sujood 6 times. If I was salaying dhuhr, I would have made sujood 10 times. I added 2 sujoods at the end of my tashahud. End of tashahud before Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah is where I added it. And the dua, you can make any dua in there. You can say what you normally say in sujood as well, Subhana Rabbil Ala wa bihamdi. But the dua for sujood sahwi is Subhana alladhi la yanamu wa la yasu. Okay. If you miss reciting a short surah and al-Fatiha, do you need to do sujood sahwi? If you didn't recite Surah Fatiha, your rak'ah is incomplete, your salah is incomplete. It's a fard of the salah. It's an obligation. So if you forgot to do it in your first rak'ah is complete. All the rak'ahs you did after that is incomplete, because you cannot do the second one if the first one is incomplete. You cannot do the third one if the second one is incomplete. So when you realize that rak'ah that you are in then becomes your first rak'ah in your salah, like kind of from scratch without breaking your salah. The short surah is no sujood sahwi for that. You can make Maghrib and not recite the short surah. You can make Isha and not recite the short surah. The short surah is a sunnah, and it's not a sunnah mu'akkada and emphasized sunnah. It is one of the minor sunnahs. Do you recite tashahud after the second sujood? Sujood sahwi? No. When you come out of the second sujood or sujood sahwi, okay, I'm going to do it. Huh? I'm going to do it. I come out of my final prostration, out sujood, and I sit in tashahud, finger pointed. Attahiyatu mubarakatuh salawatu tayyibatu lillahi assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiy wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadar rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad kama sallaita ala sayyidina Ibrahim wa ala ali sayyidina Ibrahim wa barik ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad kama barakta ala sayyidina Ibrahim wa ala ali sayyidina Ibrahim fil alamin innaka hamidum majid. What do I normally do now? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Now I say Allahu Akbar and I go into sujood. Recite Subhana Rabbil Ala wa bihamdi or Subhana alladhi la yanamu wa la yasu. I didn't say 3 times or once. I say Allahu Akbar, Rabbil Fili wa rahamni. I say Allahu Akbar, I go into sujood again. Recite what I must recite. I say Allahu Akbar, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's how it is. The first time I experienced that was in Makkah, Maghrib. The Imam didn't make a mistake. He thought he made a mistake. And we all followed because that's what you do. Second time I experienced that, also Makkah. Different trip. Third time I experienced that, Mount View. Fourth time I experienced it, Yemen. So only 4 times. Never experienced it. Only once here in Cape Town. The Imams in Cape Town, they don't make mistakes. Because I think a lot of people will be confused if they correct it. Okay. Why do people move from this spot after completing the salah to perform the sunnah salah somewhere else? You don't have to. I think it comes from the hadith that every spot that you have made salah on will testify that you had prayed on that spot. So people will move to a different spot. And because it is a sunnah as well. Okay. Is everybody happy? No. Oh, good question. If you join Salah late and there's no time to recite Surah Fatiha, the Salah is still correct. As you come there, you say Allahu Akbar, the Imam goes into Ruku. If you go into Ruku, your Salah will still be correct, even though you didn't recite Surah Fatiha and you didn't lose that rak'ah. I would still try and squeeze it in. Because remember, he must be in front of you by 2 movements for your Salah to be invalid. So at least try and get it in still. But it will still be valid. I want to get to this question here. If a lady gets a khayd, for example, after dhuhr and did not perform dhuhr, yes, she must still pay dhuhr in. For whatever reason, should she repay in the dhuhr that she missed when she is out of a state of khayd? Yes, because a khayd started and it was dhuhr, so dhuhr became incumbent upon her. Then she got a khayd. Okay, if she got it like 30 seconds after dhuhr, then not, right? So dhuhr, then 2 o'clock came and she didn't make dhuhr yet, and then she fell out. The dhuhr is still valid. She must still make the dhuhr, right? Similarly, when falling back in, as they say, falling back in, when the haid stops, it's not, the salah doesn't resume when the ghusl has taken place. If a haid is stopped by asr and there was no signs of haid after asr, so the last sign of haid was after dhuhr, there's no sign of haid after asr, right? Then she can go ghusl herself and she must make asr. Okay. Yes, if the Imam makes the sujudu sahwi, the followers also do it with him, even if you know that he didn't make a mistake. You still follow him because he thought he made a mistake. Okay. I'm just going to wait for this person to type this question. Question answer. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah khairan. I just want to recap very quickly. Conditions under which salah can be missed: oversleeping, forgetting, traveling. Genuine forgetting, genuine oversleeping. Not you switch off all your alarms for Fajr and you oversleep. No? You must have made an effort. Making up mispray, always pray your salah in the correct sequence. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Okay. Might go contrary to how a lot of us have learned it. Well, at the time I learned it went contrary to how I learned it as well, but I adopted the new way. It made more sense. It never made sense for me to salah Dhuhr, Asr, Isha, Maghrib, or Dhuhr, Fajr, Dhuhr, Isha, Asr, and then Maghrib. Never made sense to me. Felt that. When I learned this way, it made immediate sense to me. You must align that correct sequence, right? Irrespective of if it means you're going to miss another salah now. So you come home, you got 5 minutes left for Maghrib, you didn't make Dhuhr, you didn't make Asr. Make Asr first, Maghrib will be late as well. We'll teach maybe that we don't do it again. And the latecomer to congregational prayer, you Miss the ruku, you miss the entire rakah, and then always add on exactly what you missed. So I missed my second and third rakah, so I do my second and third rakah, which means I sit in tashahud and I sit in tashahud in the third one again. Making a mistake, sujood sahwi, or the qunut in fajr, the qunut in witr after the 15th Ramadan, and the first tashahud when you pray more than two. Obligatory acts, reset your salah. In the third rakah, you realize I didn't make second sujood in my first rakah. It's like you re-niya that this is now my third. Okay, let's just pray that one over and go from there. This is now 1, 2, 3, 4. It means that in the end you'd have done 7, but the first one was incomplete, so the second one was valid. You realize in the third one, you then changed and made the third one your first, second, third, fourth. You'd end up doing 6, right? So rather do that. When you forget how much rak'ah you've performed, always build on the lesser number and then make sujood sahwi. We went over sujood sahwi. It is the sujood of forgetfulness after the tashahud before ending your salah. And you're about to say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And you say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You go down into sujood twice and then say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The wisdom of saying Allahu Akbar after giving the salams and ending the salah, I have no idea. I hear some ulama say it's a forgotten sunnah. Some ulama say it's one of the sunnahs nobody knew about until 10 years ago. I heard somebody say once. All I know is it's a sunnah. I don't know what the wisdom is behind it. And it's not part of the salah. So your salah is not incorrect without it. It's just an additional Allahu Akbar. So it's definitely not part of the salah, and the way I've learned is it's a sunnah. Okay. And I've actually heard an imam say one day, it's not the sunnah, he doesn't know where people got that from. Okay. And then we covered sujood sahwi. Next week, inshallah, we'll do prayer of the traveler and the different types of sunnah salah. Oh, questions? Explain that when fall in during Asr, you must make dhuhr too. Same for Isha and Maghrib too. Okay. Rifka, I don't understand what you're saying here. Explain that when you fall in... Oh, this is a Khairi question. The ones I'm not qualified for. Explain when you fall in... Oh, okay. When you fall in during Asr, you must make dhuhr too. Is it? I kind of remember that. I didn't pay a lot of attention in class when they explained Khair. Can we address all Khair questions to Rifka assessment, please? So when you fall in during Asr, so the Adhan is gone for Asr and then you... Okay, so Rifka, you're saying the opposite of what I said. When you fall in, a lady has a Khair and after Asr she stops, right? So she ghusls herself. Then she must make dhuhr and Asr, is what Sister Rifka is saying. Okay? And the same for Isha and Maghrib. So after Maghrib, she's fallen back in. She's now clean. The last time she noticed Khair was before Maghrib. So she hasn't noticed any Khair post Maghrib. Oh, sorry, Isha, right? Then that means she's clean. She can go ghusl herself. She must make Isha, Maghrib, and then Isha as well. That is what Sister Rifka is saying. Get the cramp on her. Any more questions? Okay, brothers, if there's any, and sisters, if there's any questions, put it on the chat group, message it. We can, if there's, you want me to follow the qada and again, then, and how to add onto the salah, then let me know, we'll go over it again. We can take our time with this. Because it's something that we must learn and something we must get right. We must get absolutely right. If you don't understand, then I ask Marv. I try to explain it to the best of my ability. If it goes contrary to what you were taught when you were growing up, know that this is not a difference of opinion. This is the correct way of doing it, and it is the more correct way of doing it. And think about it logically. Now appeal to the logic here. You don't want your salah to be out of sequence during the day. It must always be in the correct sequence. So just take it from there. And when you're paying in and you miss certain rakahs, the first or the second or the third, just remember that if you miss the ruku, you miss the entire rakah. And to always pay in the salah, in the sequence, it doesn't matter. Don't worry what the imam is praying. He can be praying Fajr. If you're making Maghrib, you're making Maghrib. Right? To always pray, focus on what you are praying and not what the imam is praying. Right? So if he's making Maghrib and you have to make Asr, by the time he ends his Salah, you stand up and you perform your fourth rak'ah, which is your Asr Salah. Right? So to always pay in exactly what you missed in the sequence that you missed it. And always keep your Salah in sequence. Okay. Then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all those people who have passed away. Allah grant them Jannatul Firdaus, make it easy for their families, grant them contentment in their hearts. For those of us, so all of the people who have lost loved ones, for all those who are sick, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them their health. I know of quite a few people who are not either in good health or going in for procedures for tomorrow, and I know somebody going in tomorrow and somebody going in on Friday. Two very good friends of mine. One, I think one on the neck and one on the chest. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide the hands of the surgeons for all those who are going in for small little procedures or operations. Make their recovery easy. Keep them safe. And grant them full recoveries and guide the hands of the surgeons, inshallah, so that they can come out there healed and healthy. All those who are suffering, all those who are getting su'a, all those the unemployed, the widows, the widowers, the orphans, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hold his hand of mercy over all of them, make it easy for them, grant them solace and grant them still questions coming in, and make it easy for them and grant them rizq and barakah, inshallah. And we'll see everybody next week again for the class, 7:10. Really bring two grandpas with. So have a good week, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.